Imagine if some of the most famous landmarks in the world had never been built. The Eiffel Tower, the Taj Mahal, the Statue of Liberty, these iconic structures that we all know and love very nearly never existed at all. In this video, we'll explore 10 architectural marvels that were almost never constructed, and how they managed to defy the odds and become the legendary landmarks we know today. Number 10. The Eiffel Tower. Let's start with one of the most iconic structures in the world, the Eiffel Tower in Paris. When plans were first unveiled in 1889 for a 1,000-foot tall wrought iron tower to serve as the centerpiece of the Paris World's Fair, the idea was met with widespread disdain and derision. Many influential Parisians saw the proposed tower as a staggering eyesore that would irreparably damage the city's architectural integrity. Hundreds of prominent artists and intellectuals signed a petition condemning the useless and monstrous tower, which they claimed would be the dishonor of Paris. Even Gustave Eiffel, the renowned civil engineer who designed the tower, had trouble getting the project approved. But Eiffel persevered, using his engineering expertise and political savvy to overcome the naysayers. He argued that the tower would be an unparalleled feat of modern engineering, and that its height would make it the perfect centerpiece for the 1889 World's Fair. After intense lobbying, the Paris Municipal Council eventually approved the design, albeit with the stipulation that the tower be dismantled after the fair ended. The rest, as they say, is history. The Eiffel Tower was an overwhelming success at the 1889 World's Fair, drawing over 2 million visitors. Its popularity was so great that the city decided to keep it standing, and it has gone on to become one of the most recognizable landmarks in the world, welcoming over 6 million visitors per year. Number 9. The Taj Mahal. While the Eiffel Tower almost never made it past the planning stages, the Taj Mahal faced an even more precarious existence. This stunning white marble mausoleum, one of the most famous buildings in the world, was commissioned in the 17th century by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan as a testament to his enduring love for his wife, Mumtaz Mahal. However, the Taj Mahal's construction was plagued by political turmoil. Shortly after work began in 1632, Shah Jahan was overthrown in a coup led by his own son, Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb, who despised the lavish spending on the Taj, immediately halted construction and kept his father imprisoned for the rest of his life. It was only after Aurangzeb's death in 1707 that work on the Taj Mahal was finally able to resume under the rule of Bahadur Shah I. Even then, the project faced ongoing challenges, including a shortage of skilled labor and the constantly changing designs and plans overseen by a succession of different architects. Against all odds, the Taj Mahal was finally completed in 1643, over 11 years after construction first began. The sheer dedication and perseverance required to see this architectural masterpiece through to completion is truly awe-inspiring. Had the political turmoil and design changes continued much longer, it's very possible the Taj Mahal may never have been built at all. Number 8. The Statue of Liberty. Speaking of architectural wonders that were almost never constructed, let's turn our attention to one of the most iconic landmarks in the United States, the Statue of Liberty. The origins of the Statue of Liberty can be traced back to the 1870s, when French historian Edouard de L'Oboulé proposed that France gift a monument to the United States in honor of the American Centennial. The project was enthusiastically championed by the renowned French sculptor Frédéric-Auguste Bartholdi, who began designing the iconic statue. However, the path to realizing Bartholdi's ambitious vision was anything but smooth. Securing funding to construct the statue was an enormous challenge, with the French and American public initially showing little interest in the project. It took over a decade of tireless fundraising efforts on both sides of the Atlantic before Bartholdi was finally able to begin work on the statue in 1876. Even then, the Statue of Liberty's future remained uncertain. The American people were largely disinterested in hosting the statue, and New York City officials balked at the idea of providing a site and footing the bill for the pedestal. It wasn't until 1884, just 2 years before the statue's completion, that the American Committee finally secured the funds to build the pedestal. Yet another crisis emerged when the statue itself was almost lost at sea during its voyage from France to the United States in 1885. Thankfully, the ship carrying the statue's 350 individual pieces managed to safely reach New York Harbor, and the Statue of Liberty was finally dedicated in 1886, over a decade after the initial proposal. Number 7. The Burj Khalifa. While the Statue of Liberty overcame financial and logistical obstacles, the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, had to contend with an even more daunting challenge: the global financial crisis of 2008. Construction on the Burj Khalifa began in 2004, with the goal of creating an ultra-luxurious mixed-use development that would cement Dubai's status as a global business and tourism hub. Lead architect Adrian Smith designed a sleek, soaring skyscraper that would stand over 2,700 feet tall, shattering the previous record held by Taiwan's Taipei 101. However, the project's progress was thrown into jeopardy when the 2008 financial crisis struck. Dubai, which had been fueling its rapid growth through massive amounts of borrowed money, was hit especially hard. Construction on the Burj Khalifa ground to a halt as the developer struggled to secure additional financing. For a time, it seemed like the Burj Khalifa might never be completed. The project's future hung in the balance as Dubai's economy teetered on the brink of collapse. It wasn't until the government of the United Arab Emirates stepped in with a $10 billion bailout that work on the tower was able to resume in 2009. Even then, the Burj Khalifa's completion remained very much in doubt. The developers had to renegotiate contracts with suppliers and contractors and find creative ways to keep the project viable in the face of ongoing economic turmoil. But through sheer determination, the team behind the Burj Khalifa pressed on, finally completing the tower in 2010. True evidence of the power of perseverance in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. Number 6. The Sydney Opera House. If the Burj Khalifa had to overcome a global financial crisis, the Sydney Opera House had to contend with a seemingly endless series of design changes, budget overruns, and political interference. The origins of the Sydney Opera House can be traced back to the early 1950s, when the New South Wales government held an international competition to design a new performing arts venue for Sydney. The winning entry, submitted by a young Danish architect named Jorn Utzon, featured a stunningly innovative design featuring a series of interlocking concrete shells. However, Utzon's unconventional vision immediately ran into trouble. Local authorities were deeply skeptical of the ambitious design, which they deemed too complex and expensive to actually build. Utzon was forced to make countless revisions to his original plans, each one eroding more and more of his original artistic vision. To make matters worse, the project's budget spiraled completely out of control. What was initially estimated to cost 7 million Australian pounds ended up costing over 102 million, an astronomical overrun that sparked public outrage. The New South Wales government, eager to rein in costs, repeatedly interfered with Utzon's designs, further compromising his artistic integrity. Utzon finally quit the project in 1966, just a few years before the Sydney Opera House was finally completed in 1973. The final product was a stunning architectural masterpiece, but it bore little resemblance to Utzon's original vision. Despite the many challenges, the Sydney Opera House went on to become one of the most recognizable and celebrated buildings in the world. But it's more of a testament to Utzon's persistence that his initial designs were ever realized at all. Number 5. The Gateway Arch. Like the Sydney Opera House, the iconic Gateway Arch in St. Louis, Missouri, also overcame a long and troubled path to completion. The idea for a grand memorial to America's westward expansion was first proposed in the 1930s, but it took over 30 years of political wrangling and fundraising efforts before construction on the arch finally began in 1963. The project's architect, Eero Saarinen, envisioned a sleek, 630-foot tall stainless steel arch that would serve as the centerpiece of a vast new public park along the Mississippi River. However, the Gateway Arch's path to completion was fraught with obstacles. Saarinen's innovative design was met with skepticism by many, who doubted that an arch of such unprecedented scale could actually be built. The project also faced intense opposition from local residents who would be displaced by the park's construction, as well as from preservationists concerned about the impact on historic buildings. To make matters worse, funding for the project was difficult to secure. The arch was initially intended to be entirely privately funded, but when those efforts fell short, the project had to rely on a patchwork of federal, state, and local government sources. This resulted in constant clashes between different stakeholders over the arch's design, budget, and timeline. Tragically, Saarinen passed away in 1961, just 2 years before construction on the arch finally began. But his vision was ultimately realized, with the completed gateway arch being dedicated in 1965. Today, it stands as an enduring symbol of America's pioneering spirit, an accolade to the power of perseverance in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. Number 4. The Sagrada Familia. If any building exemplifies the power of sheer determination in the face of seemingly endless obstacles, it's the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, Spain. Construction on this magnificent Roman Catholic basilica began in 1882, and it is still not complete over 140 years later. The Sagrada Familia's architect, the legendary Antoni Gaudí, envisioned a breathtakingly ornate cathedral that would blend Gothic and Art Nouveau styles into a unique architectural masterpiece. However, progress on the project was painfully slow from the very beginning, hampered by a lack of funding, political turmoil, and Gaudí's own meticulous attention to detail. Gaudí devoted the last 43 years of his life to the Sagrada Familia, but when he was tragically struck and killed by a trolley in 1926, the project was still barely half finished. In the decades that followed, construction continued in fits and starts, repeatedly interrupted by the Spanish Civil War, financial crises, and political changes. Yet the builders of the Sagrada Familia never gave up. Through the dedication of generations of architects, engineers, and construction workers, the cathedral has slowly but surely taken shape over the past century. Even today, with an anticipated completion date sometime in the 2020s, the Sagrada Familia remains an active construction site, a stunning proof of human perseverance and the power of a singular, unwavering artistic vision. Number 3. The Louvre Pyramid. While the Sagrada Familia has taken over a century to build, the Louvre Pyramid in Paris came surprisingly close to never being constructed at all. In the early 1980s, French President François Mitterrand proposed a major renovation and expansion of the iconic Louvre Museum. The centerpiece of this plan was a grand glass and steel pyramid designed by renowned architect I.M. Pei. Pei's innovative, ultra-modern design was immediately met with intense public backlash, with many Parisians decrying it as an eyesore that would ruin the historic character of the Louvre. The controversy surrounding the Louvre Pyramid was so fierce that at one point Mitterrand himself considered abandoning the project altogether. Pei's design faced fierce opposition from France's cultural elite, who saw it as an affront to the country's architectural heritage. There were even protests and petitions calling for the pyramid to be scrapped. Ultimately, Mitterrand and Pei stood firm, determined to see the Louvre Pyramid through to completion. They weathered the intense public criticism, making strategic compromises to allay some of the concerns. When the pyramid was finally unveiled in 1989, the public's initial outrage gradually gave way to widespread admiration for its bold, modern elegance. Today, the Louvre Pyramid is one of the most recognizable landmarks in Paris, drawing millions of visitors each year. It's an acknowledgement to the power of visionary leadership and creative perseverance in the face of fierce opposition. If Mitterrand and Pei had given in to the naysayers, one of the world's most iconic architectural achievements may have never come to fruition. Number 2. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial. While the Louvre Pyramid overcame public backlash, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. had to contend with a much more personal and politically charged controversy. When the competition to design the Vietnam Memorial was launched in 1980, the winning entry submitted by a young architecture student named Maya Lin was immediately met with outrage. Lin's minimalist V-shaped wall inscribed with the names of the fallen was seen by many as an insensitive and disrespectful design that failed to properly honor the sacrifices of American soldiers. A group of prominent politicians and veterans, led by former U.S. Senator James Webb, denounced Lin's design as a political statement of shame that needed to be significantly altered or scrapped entirely. There were calls for the memorial to instead feature more traditional, heroic sculptural elements. Lin herself faced a torrent of personal attacks, with critics accusing the 21-year-old designer of being an anti-war activist who hated the military. For a time, it seemed like the memorial project might be abandoned altogether in the face of such intense opposition. But Lin refused to back down, standing firm in her artistic vision. With the support of the Memorials Commission, she defended her design, arguing that its simple, reflective nature was intended to encourage contemplation and personal connection, rather than glorification of war. Ultimately, a compromise was reached. A flagpole and 3 bronze statues depicting soldiers were added to the memorial, placating some of the critics. When the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was dedicated in 1982, it was instantly acclaimed as a powerful and moving tribute. Today, it is one of the most visited memorials in Washington, D.C., a tribute to the power of perseverance in the face of vehement opposition. Number 1. The Hoover Dam. Our final example of an iconic structure that was almost never built is the Hoover Dam, one of the most impressive engineering feats of the 20th century. When the US government first proposed constructing a massive dam on the Colorado River in the late 1920s, the idea was met with intense skepticism and resistance. Many experts dismissed the concept as technologically unfeasible, arguing that the extreme conditions of the remote Black Canyon site made building a dam of such unprecedented size and scale practically impossible. Adding to the challenge was the fact that the Hoover Dam project would require an enormous logistical effort, involving the coordination of multiple government agencies, private contractors, and a workforce of over 21,000 people. Financing the dam's construction also proved to be a massive hurdle, with the initial $165 million price tag seemingly prohibitively expensive during the Great Depression. Despite these daunting obstacles, the determined engineers and government officials behind the Hoover Dam project refused to give up. They spent years carefully planning and refining the dam's innovative design, eventually arriving at an ingenious solution that would allow construction to proceed. When work on the Hoover Dam finally began in 1931, it was a monumental undertaking, requiring the excavation of over 4.4 million cubic yards of concrete and the deployment of cutting-edge construction techniques never before attempted on such a massive scale. Yet, through sheer grit and determination, the builders managed to complete the dam in just 5 years, well ahead of schedule. The finished Hoover Dam stands as an awe-inspiring testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. What was once dismissed as an impossible dream is now recognized as one of the most iconic engineering marvels in the world. The story of the Hoover Dam's construction serves as a powerful reminder that with enough vision, dedication, and tenacity, even the most daunting architectural challenges can be overcome. From the Eiffel Tower to the Taj Mahal, the Statue of Liberty to the Burj Khalifa, the stories behind these iconic structures are filled with drama, adversity, and against all odds, determination. Time and time again, these architectural marvels faced formidable challenges that threatened to derail their very existence, whether it was political opposition, financial crises, logistical nightmares, or even personal tragedies. If you found this dive into the world of iconic structures and their history fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with friends and family. Also, do let us know your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, remember to stay curious. We'll see you in the next video.